young doctor come to see me. I'm honored. Come in.
Hello to all the classic people that are returning. I'm glad you're back. I want to welcome any new visitors. As a technical note, references and citations are listed for each show on the site at classicmovierev.com. Today on the Classic Movie Reviews podcast, we are taking on The Body Snatcher, 1945. Today's movie is based on a short story by Robert Louis Stevenson, the guy that wrote Treasure Island, 1883. Super director Robert Wise directed this film. I must say he did a fantastic job setting the mood and tension. The movie has a 7.3 rating on imdb.com. It comes in at 84% on the tomato meter and 75% audience approval on RottenTomatoes.com. I think it's just a bit better than these ratings, especially during the ending sequence. New York Times film critic Bosley Carruthers stated in a May 26, 1945 review, quote, "This new gloom lodger, though not as nerve-paralyzing as the performers might lead you to expect, has enough suspense and atmospheric terror to make it one of the betters of its genre. Boris Karloff, sporting a day-old beard, is in there pitching with ghoulish delight as an Edinburgh cabbie circa 1830, whose hobby is snatching people out of their graves, and Bela Lugosi, surprisingly unsinister for a change, working industriously to achieve fame as a blackmailer. A long time ago, Robert Louis Stevenson supplied the plot in a short story about the difficulties medical men had in procuring cadavers for scientific study, and RKO has taken the exhumation up from there for less noble purposes," unquote. This movie, which is not as well known as it should be, has Boris Karloff acting in as sinister a character role as I have seen him, and that includes Frankenstein 1931. So let's get on to the actors.
Right, and I'm a Shakespearean actor.
The excellent horror master Boris Karloff played Cabman John Gray, and he was as scary as I've ever seen him. Karloff was first covered in Bride of Frankenstein 1935. Bela Lugosi had a very subdued role as the medical school helper Joseph. Lugosi was in bad shape by this point from drug addiction and war wounds. He had a hard time completing his scenes. Lugosi was first covered in The Wolfman, 1941. Henry Daniell was the medical professor, Dr. Wolfe Toddy McFarlane. Daniell was born in England in 1894. When World War I broke out, Daniell enlisted. He was wounded in action on the Western Front and was discharged from the Army in 1915. He spent the next 2 years acting on stage with little to show for his efforts. In 1921, Daniell moved to America and succeeded in getting work on Broadway. His first film experience was in 1929. With only 95 films and television credits, he was in an incredible number of top-flight films. A short list includes The Great Dictator, 1940, The Philadelphia Story, 1940, All This in Heaven 2, 1940, Film Noir Dressed to Kill, 1941, Watch on the Rhine, 1943, The Body Snatcher, 1945, The Exile, 1947, Witness for the Prosecution, 1957, The Story of Mankind, 1957, along with everyone else, Wake of the Red Witch, 1948, with John Wayne, Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea, 1961, Mutiny on the Bounty, 1962, as the unfairly condemning judge, and My Fair Lady, 1964. Daniell died in 1963 while filming My Fair Lady. Edith Atwater played housekeeper and common-law wife of Toddy, Meg Cameron. In her role, she was also said to be part fae, either fairy or having premonitions. Atwater was born in Illinois in 1911. Atwater was trained at the American Laboratory Theater. She started acting when she was 18 and was on Broadway by 1931. She did quite well on Broadway, but was not given the opportunities to excel in film. Her first really successful role was in today's film, The Body Snatcher, 1945. No significant roles followed, and her best-known film roles include parts in film noir Sweet Smell of Success, 1957, Straight Jacket, 1964, True Grit, 1969, and Family Plot, 1976. Atwater continued to appear in television roles, and she was married to Hugh Marlowe for a time. She died in 1986. Russell Wade played medical student Donald Fetties. Wade was born in Oklahoma. I would have bet real money he was English. At some point in the 1920s, Wade moved to Los Angeles and attended Hollywood High School. He later worked on stage before appearing in his first movie in 1933. Wade had 94 acting credits, with his best movies being The Ghost Ship 1943, Sundown Riders 1944, The Body Snatcher 1945, and the film noir Shoot to Kill 1947. Wade retired from acting in 1948 and died in 2006. Story.
Let me explain. No, there is too much. Let me sum up.
The scroll shows that the film is located in Edinburgh, Scotland in 1831. The English are in charge and the guards are posting orders. A young street lady, Donna Lee, sings a tune. A young medical student, Donald Fetties, Russell Wade, is taking his lunch break. Donald offers some food to a stray dog that is sitting on a freshly dug grave. The dog growls. A lady comes into the cemetery and feeds the dog. She says the dog will not leave the grave of her dead son.
He'll no leave the grave. Not since Wednesday last, when we buried the lad.
Your son, ma'am? He must have been a fine lad for the wee dog to love him so.
Aye, a fine lad he was.
She mentions that it's just as well that the dog stay because they can't pay someone to guard the fresh grave against grave robbers that prowl at night. She mentions that the doctors are the cause of the grave robbing. Donald tells her that he's a medical student but has to quit today. At the home of Doctor and Professor Dr. Wolf, Toddy McFarland, Henry Danielle, a carriage driver, cabman John Gray, Boris Karloff, delivers Miss Marsh, Rita Corday, and her crippled daughter, Georgina Marsh, Sharon Moffat.
He knows every little girl in Edinburgh. Someday when you're running and playing in the streets, he'll nicker at you as we go by.
When the maid, Meg Cameron, Edith Atwater, opens the door, a strange look is exchanged between her and cabman Gray. Dr. McFarland examines Georgina and he thinks she can be healed through surgery. He is very terse. Donald comes in and he is asked to examine Georgina. He has great bedside manner and is very caring. Dr. McFarland and Donald examine Georgina together. McFarland says that she has a tumor on her spine. However, he will not do the surgery because it will take away from his teaching. Miss Marsh begs Dr. McFarland to take her daughter's pain away. He refuses and says he needs to teach. After Mrs. Marsh and Georgina leave, Donald says he has to quit school. Dr. McFarland won't have it. He offers to make Donald an assistant so he will have the money he needs for school. The maid, Meg, talks to Dr. McFarland alone. Meg says that Donald is too good to be one of the assistants. She is more than just a maid. Dr. McFarland says he was assistant to Knox and it didn't spoil him. Dr. McFarland tells Meg not to worry, and they have a big old kiss. In the laboratory, Joseph, Bela Lugosi, is cleaning up. Donald and Dr. McFarland come in. McFarland tells Donald that he will take care of accounts and deliver specimens to the other students. Just then, Dr. McFarland notices Joseph listening and tells him to stop sneaking around like a, quote, redskin, unquote. McFarland tells Donald that all of the bodies are not paupers from the municipal authority. That night in the cemetery, a dark figure enters and kills the dog with a shovel. He begins digging the grave of the recently buried boy. Later, at Dr. McFarland's, Donald is awakened by a carriage arriving and a knock at the door. Cabman Gray comes in with a dead body over his shoulder. Donald is very nervous and Gray mocks him through the procedure.
I've had some dealings with McFarland in the past, you understand. And I've always gotten on with his assistants. They're providing, of course, they understand my humble position.
Dr. McFarland said I should pay you.
Of course, that's the soul of the business, the pay.
Donald pays and records the body. Gray tells him to log the name as McDuff. Gray is very creepy and Donald is not too sure. When Gray leaves, Dr. McFarland comes in and laughs at Donald. McFarland says meeting Gray is a milestone in Donald's medical career. Donald goes about his duty as a teaching assistant, and he is not too well respected by the wealthier students. Joseph comes in and tells Donald that a lady has come to see him. The lady is Mrs. Marsh, and she wants Donald to help with Georgina's surgery. He falls to her charms and agrees to ask Dr. McFarland. Back in the laboratory, Dr. McFarland is teaching a class. One of the student doctors has received an arm from the most recently delivered body. McFarland talks to the young man about the arm. The student says the arm was strong and could stand up to grave robbers Burke and Hare. Dr. McFarland jumps down his throat about the tasteless joke.
Well, Richardson, I see you have that arm you've been yearning for.
Yes, sir. This fellow would have been a great one at hurling the bar. It was a beautiful bicep. Burke and Hare could never have got the best of him.
What did you say?
Well, I was just making a joke, sir.
It's a poor subject for jest, particularly for a medical student.
I will add more about this in the summary. When Donald goes to his usual lunch place in the cemetery, a crowd has gathered and the dead boy's mother comes out holding the dead dog. She can't believe they killed the dog too. Donald misses the afternoon classes and comes in to talk to Dr. McFarland. Donald doesn't want to continue because he knows where the bodies are coming from is an illegal source. Dr. McFarland says when he was an assistant, he had to deal with men like Gray. McFarland convinces Donald that getting bodies from grave robbers is necessary to educate more doctors. The street singer is out at night singing and trying to get tips. Dr. McFarland and Donald pass by on the way to a public house. The two are discussing their plans for eating a roast pig that is cooking on the hearth. They hear the voice of Gray call Dr. McFarland by his nickname, Toddy. McFarland demands not to be called by that name.
We'll have a stiffener or two of hot rum. Then we can meet this fellow on fairly equal terms of warmth, eh, Fetties?
A fine specimen, isn't he, Toddy McFarland? Come, Toddy, sit down here with me.
Don't call me that confounded name.
Well then, Dr. McFarland. Though I've known the time, Toddy, when you liked the name. Aye, and many are dead now who called you by it. Rough and wild ones they were, too.
Gray asks the two to sit down. After they refuse, Gray forces him to sit down. Gray begins to poke at Dr. McFarland about his past. Donald picks this time to ask about the surgery for Georgina. Gray mentions long-lost friends and insists that Dr. McFarland do the surgery. Donald tries to stand up to Gray. Gray says Dr. McFarland owes him because he saved him before. Donald tells Mrs. Marsh that the surgery on Georgina will go forward. Georgina is still looking for Gray and his horse. Donald asks Georgina about standing the pain. Later, Dr. McFarland is sitting by the fire looking disheveled. Meg comes in dressed for bed and calls him Toddy as well. She asks if he would like to smash Gray's head. Meg is sure that Gray's hold on Dr. McFarland is strong. The next day, Donald comes to see Dr. McFarland, and now that he is hungover, he refuses to do the surgery. Donald goes walking at night and sees a singing girl by the wall. Donald is looking for the home of Gray. He finally finds the location. Gray brings Donald into his room.
The young doctor come to see me. I'm honored. Come in. Yes, sir, take this. Most comfortable chair.
Donald asks about Gray getting him another body. Gray says it's a bit of a problem because a dog was killed at the last grave robbery, and people are really concerned about dogs. Gray won't commit to getting a body. Gray watches Donald leave, but his eyes are pulled to the singing girl. Gray goes out in his carriage and tracks down the singing girl. The killing is not shown, only heard. Donald is working at the school when he hears Gray's carriage arrive. Gray comes in with a body and lays it on the table. Donald recognizes the face of the street singer. He says Gray did not get the body legally. Gray turns harsh and demands his money. Donald pays the price. In the morning, Dr. McFarland comes to the lab. Donald shows the body to him and he recognizes the girl too. Donald says she was murdered and that Gray killed her. Joseph is lurking around in the background. Dr. McFarland denies that the girl was murdered, and that Donald would be a party to the murder if she was.
I wouldn't report it.
Grave robbing is one thing. This is murder.
I don't know that. Neither do you. This subject may have been an epileptic, thrown a fit, fallen out of bed, cracked her skull and killed herself. There's everything explained. That bruise on her forehead.
I can't believe that.
Believe it or not, it's best that you pretend that you do. After all, you ordered this subject, received it here and paid for it. That makes you a party to murder.
McFarland says they must dissect the body and he will need the spinal section so he can prepare for Georgina's surgery. Sometime later, Mrs. Marsh is waiting while Georgina has her surgery. McFarlane is using the surgery as a class. He does the surgery quite easily and turns the girl over to Donald for her additional care. Dr. McFarlane is studying when Joseph comes in to tell him that Mr. Gray has arrived. McFarlane says he has no more business with Gray. Gray walks into the room and greets Toddy. Gray says even if they do have no more business, he will be stopping by. Gray laughs as he leaves. Joseph tries to talk to Gray, but they are interrupted by Donald. Donald goes inside to speak with Dr. McFarlane about Georgina's progress. Later, Mrs. Marsh and Georgina come for a consult with Dr. McFarlane and Donald. Georgina still won't try to walk. McFarlane is frustrated because her legs won't work. He says there's no hope for her. Dr. McFarlane leaves to go to the public house to get drunk. Gray is in the back and goes to talk to Toddy. McFarlane treats Gray in a very friendly manner. Dr. McFarlane explains how everything in the spine works and says he put everything together correctly. Gray calls him a fool and says McFarlane only knows dead bodies and is not a real doctor. Gray says that he and Knox taught McFarlane in cellars and basements.
You can't build life the way you put blocks together, Toddy.
What the devil are you talking about? I'm an anatomist. I know the body, I know how it works.
You're a fool, Toddy, and no doctor. It's only the dead ones you know.
I am a doctor, I teach medicine.
Like Knox taught you, like I taught you, in cellars and graveyards.
Gray finally says that he took the blame in Dr. McFarlane's place in a case about grave robbing and murder. Dr. McFarlane tells Gray to stay away. Joseph goes to see Gray at his house. Joseph says he knows Gray kills people to sell bodies. Joseph is trying to blackmail Gray. Gray says he will pay, and then he gives Joseph a drink. He also gives him 16 pounds. Gray keeps pouring drinks for Joseph. Gray proposes that he and Joseph go into business killing people. Gray tells about Burke and Hare killing people and selling them to Dr. Knox. Finally, Gray puts his hand over Joseph's nose and mouth until he is dead. Gray brings Joseph's body to the lab. He goes behind the curtain and the sound of clothes tearing and water splashing is heard. Gray goes upstairs and is hanging out with Meg. She is not happy for him to be there. He says she and her were old cronies.
You've no need to be anxious, Meg. McFarlane's been drunken away before. He'll be back in good time. Meanwhile, you have me to keep you company.
I'd call that no good fortune.
Oh, there was a time, lass. A time when I used to bring the dashing young doctor to your door. That you weren't so uncommon cold to your old friend, Gray.
Why must you be at him all the time?
He's my friend. I like to see my friends. I like to visit them.
Finally, Dr. McFarlane comes in, and Gray says he has brought him a present. Dr. McFarlane goes downstairs and is followed by Donald. They find the body of Joseph in a big tank. McFarlane says to dissect the body and make the proper entries in the book.
A member of his household. That is, the more things are wrong, the more one must act as if everything were right. You must do with Joseph as you did with the street singer. Complete dissection of proper entry in the book.
No.
What do you mean?
I'll have no more to do with it. I'll not put my neck into a noose, not even for your sake, Dr. McFarlane.
Don't be a fool. You can't begin and then stop. Because that entry of the girl's body's in your writing, you'll do as I say.
Donald refuses as Meg comes down the stairs. Meg tries to stop McFarlane from going after Gray. Meg tells Donald to leave the house. She says Dr. McFarlane is ashamed of his past and never became a great doctor because of it.
He could have been a great man, a good man, and a fine doctor. But there was always the shame of the old ways and old life to hold him back. And Gray to hound him to his death.
Meg says Dr. McFarlane was to Knox as Donald is to Dr. McFarlane. That is where he met Gray. Meg says she is half Fey and she sees the pit yearning for Dr. McFarlane and Gray.
I'm one part over heels in love with McFarlane, and one part Fey. You're a lowlander, Fettes, and you have no way of knowing what we Highlanders call the second sight.
I've heard of it.
It's a gift to my people. And I see McFarlane and Gray. The pit yawns for them.
At his home, Gray lights a candle and Dr. McFarlane is sitting in the house. McFarlane says he must get rid of Gray. McFarlane tries to bribe Gray to leave. Gray says it is a pleasure for him to see Dr. McFarlane beg and scrape. The two men start fighting. Gray tries to smother McFarlane, but the doctor fights back. Gray gives the doctor a break and the fight resumes. Finally, McFarlane kills Gray with a piece of wood. McFarlane dresses as Gray and takes the body to the lab. Meg comes down and sees that the dead body is Gray. Meg tells that Donald is gone and that McFarlane will never be rid of Gray. Donald goes to see Mrs. Marsh and Georgina. While the adults talk, Georgina stands to see the white horse. Donald goes back to tell Dr. McFarlane. Meg says he is not at home. Donald goes to find Dr. McFarlane at the pub. McFarlane has sold Gray's horse and carriage. Dr. McFarlane thinks the girl is well because he got rid of Gray.
The little Marsh girl stood and walked, really stood and walked.
What's that you're saying?
The little girl, she couldn't walk for her. The muscles were too weak, but she did stand and she took a step or two.
I knew it. I knew it. The moment I was rid of him.
Who?
Gray. I'm rid of him.
Some women in mourning come in just having buried their sister. Dr. McFarlane says he is going to the cemetery to rob the grave himself. Donald follows the doctor to the remote cemetery. The two men dig the grave. The two doctors load the dead body into the carriage with them. It is a stormy night and the horse is spooked. Dr. McFarlane begins to hear the voice of Gray calling Toddy. The voice is in his head and the flopping dead body is driving McFarlane insane.
Never get rid of me, 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 never, 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 never.
Oh!
McFarlane stops the coach.
It's changed. It is, I swear, it's changed.
Changed? Changed to what?
This is not a woman.
And takes a look at the face of the body. The face is that of Gray. When McFarlane shouts, the horse takes off, leaving Donald on the ground.
Gray.
Dr. McFarlane!
The exposed body of Gray keeps on falling on McFarlane as he drives faster and faster. Finally, the carriage goes over a cliff. Donald runs up and McFarlane is dead. He looks at the body and it's the face of a woman. As Donald walks alone down the dark road, the words of Hippocrates of Kos are shown. Quote, "As is through error, the man tries and rises. It is through tragedy he learns. All the roads of learning begin in darkness and go into the light." Unquote. I'll be back with conclusions and the world-famous short summary following a word from our sponsors. Summary. William Burke and William Hare committed 16 murders in 10 months in 1828 Edinburgh, Scotland. The pair sold the bodies to Dr. Robert Knox. Without enough evidence to convict the team, the police offered Hare a deal granting him immunity. Burke and his wife were tried. Burke was hanged, and his wife's case could not be proven. So Cabman Gray was echoing the role of Hare, with Toddy being Knox's assistant. The dog that was killed in the movie was most likely based on Greyfriars Bobby. John Gray was a night watchman for the police and owned the dog Bobby. After his owner died, Bobby spent the next 14 years laying on the grave, except when he left to eat. When Bobby died, he was buried in his own grave, with a marker in the same cemetery as his deceased owner. There is a statue of the dog that is a tourist attraction. Nearby is Nicholson's, which features Greyfriars Bobby Bar. World famous short summary: you dance with the devil don't change. Hope you enjoyed today's show. You can find connections to social media and email on the site at classicmovierev.com or in the podcast show notes. We also have merchandise. We've got some wonderful t-shirts. Take a look. If you enjoyed this show, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. If you've already subscribed, you can tell a friend, colleague, or family member about the show or leave a review at Apple Podcast. It really helps the show get found. If you want to comment, suggest a movie, or help out, contact me by email at jec@classicmovierev.com. Beware the Moors.